Hello, it's Mio and welcome to this Draw With Me video where I'll be drawing different kinds of monsters using the symmetry tool in Procreate. So I haven't really been drawing much lately and haven't had any creative or good ideas, so I wanted to just kind of sit down and relax and try doodling a little bit. So I gave myself the theme of monsters because I kind of liked drawing grilla around Christmas time, and I wanted to kind of continue trying to draw monsters, but I also felt like my grilla drawing was a little bit too cute. So I wanted to kind of experiment and see if I could make a scary monster. So I started by, of course, putting on the symmetry tool in Procreate and just kind of experimenting a little bit. Started with a basic head shape, and then I tried to go with something that kind of looks like my grilla, just as a little warm-up and just to see how far I can take it. And in the beginning it was looking a little bit too cute. I tried to make it spooky with the glowy eyes, but my style tends to be very soft, which makes most of my drawings just kind of nice and cute. But I tried to kind of amp up the style and the spookiness with these kind of stitches in the side of the mouth and then these teeth that stick outward and wrinkles on the nose, and it was kind of looking like a Japanese mask or like a Japanese yokai, and then I added goblin ears and I didn't like it, so I just took everything away, made a blob in the shape of a face again, and tried something different. So here I thought maybe I would try to go with something that's a bit more rough. I also saw that the eyes of the other monster were too big, so I gave the new monster smaller eyes that are a bit more droopy and a more detailed nose. I feel like often when you draw, the softer the style and the less wrinkles and the less lines, the cuter the style is. So here I tried to go with a lot more lines. I also feel like when a character has like these very high cheekbones or are like incredibly skinny, that also often adds to like the spooky factor, and you see it a lot in horror movies and such. So I also made the face shape a lot more bony. In a lot of horror movies, the characters that are supposed to be spooky also have a lot of wrinkles, which is kind of sad actually, because I feel like they're kind of making old people like scary. But I tried to add that, but that didn't really work, so I tried different mouths. Nothing was really working. I thought this character was just kind of cute and sad. I also tried some ears. That didn't work either. So in the end, I also decided to just scrap the whole idea and keep the face shape though, because I like the face shape. I even decided that I wanted to try to give the face an even longer form to add even more to the spookiness of it, but I decided that that was stupid and I scrapped that idea. And I decided to go with, instead of a more prominent nose or more acute nose, I just decided to take the nose away completely. And then I tried adding eyes, and I always have problems with making eyes scary. I always make them kind of handsome. So I struggled a little bit with that, but in the end I think I got it. And at this point the character was kind of looking like Hancock from Fallout 4 or maybe Withers from Baldur's Gate 3. And these are both quite charming characters really. So I wanted to stray away from that as much as possible at this point and decided to make the mouth kind of crazy. So I kind of elongated the mouth incredibly much, like the jaw is kind of being ripped apart. Kind of giving it more of a zombie look, I feel like. And at this point I felt like I finally had something that kind of looked good, and I was liking the idea a lot more than the other two that I kind of crappily made. So I was very happy with this one at this point, and I decided to just continue with it. Gave it a more of a smiling look, because I always feel like smiles in horror are kind of spooky, and some glowy eyes, because that's also spooky in my opinion. And also made the teeth a little bit shiny, because why not? And some teeth that go down the mouth, and it's kind of like after this person died and got rotten, they grew more teeth or so, because I wanted the teeth to go all the way down, even though it doesn't really make any sense. But I definitely feel like it is a lot more creepy that way. At this point, my zombie man had the largest forehead in the galaxy, so I decided to also chop that forehead off and make the brain a little bit exposed. So maybe this guy like died in surgery or something. I don't know. I don't think they chop off your head in surgery. Maybe a weird experiment. that went really wrong or something in that direction. I don't really know. It was just a cool thing to draw, I thought. I also decided to give this zombie man a body, and I actually did this after I made another drawing, which you can kind of see in the layers right there, which you'll be seeing in a second. I just decided on a whim that I thought maybe Zombie Boy needed a little bit of body. And nobody or none of the other characters that I draw in this video will be getting anything more than just a flying head, because again, this was like a very relaxing drawing session for me. It was not supposed to be anything big or anything finished, really, just a little draw with me where I draw silly little monsters. Another kind of weird thing about the Zombie Boy specifically is that he's drawn in a style that is not really something that I would normally go for. I usually like very soft styles, and here I was of course trying to make Zombie Boy a lot more spooky, so I thought rougher lines would be the way to go, which I think worked. And I might try to do more of this kind of style where you have more of this kind of darker shady lines where things are not as soft and cute. But yeah, I don't know, it's just not really my style. So he's also looking a lot more different than any of the other characters I will be drawing in this video. Oh, and at some point at the process I realized he was naked, so he had to get a little shirt there. Then I brightened up the background a little bit, added a teeny bit of blood just for a little dramatic effect, and then the zombie man is done. And here's the final result of the zombie man. Pretty happy with it, even though it's not in my style. The next drawing that I did was another monster, of course, and started off as just like a semicircle thingy. And here I had kind of a vague idea of what I wanted to make. I kind of wanted to make some kind of monster that opened its face, so kind of like a Demogorgon from Stranger Things, for example. And I've seen a lot of these kinds of monsters around, and I think they're really cool. So I wanted something similar, but I also wanted to kind of go back to my old style and draw in my soft, kind of sweet looking style. So it's more of a cutesy alien that has a spooky mouth. So I also added some very cute shiny highlights to the nose, because I wanted also the nose to be very humanly and very like sweet cute little button nose, you know. And the eyes are just completely black because I wanted to be a tad spooky with the eyes. And then I started with the mouth. So I wanted the mouth to open in kind of this triangular shape, so it opened from both sides and outwards. And I just started shading that, and I didn't really know how this was going to work, really. I'm kind of winging it at this point, and I wanted the creature to have a little tongue, so I added the tongue in there, as well as some teeth later on, which I really liked. And I also just kind of placed them randomly. It's kind of like the zombie guy, where the mouth or the teeth are kind of everywhere, really. To make this mouth look more like a mouth, I also added a whole lot of these lines around it to kind of resemble more the inside of a mouth. I don't really know how an inside of a mouth looks like, to be honest, but I feel like these lines make it a lot more organic and a lot more natural. And at this point in the process, I was actually really liking this little monster, and I was really liking how alien-like and kind of sweet and cute it looked. So I just kept on adding small little details. I thought maybe ears would be cute, but honestly I didn't feel like they fit, and I felt like it was a little bit too much, so I went back on that idea. I fixed some highlights, and then I also realized that to make the mouth look more wet, I needed a lot more highlights. So I added some more, mostly in the folds, to make it look more shiny and yeah, like it's wet. And that is pretty much it for my second monster. Here is the little alien with the open mouth. And then I decided to make one more monster. I had this idea that popped into my head that I just couldn't get out, and it was of like an eye monster. And this is actually not an original idea at all. I think many people have drawn eye monster, and this one is specifically inspired by the game The Evil Within, which I recently just finished, and it has a whole lot of eyes in it, and it doesn't have this kind of an eye monster specifically, but it has a lot of different eye monsters. And I also feel like Resident Evil has a lot of eye monsters and a lot of video games in general. And I also feel like I've seen this kind of monster specifically somewhere before, so I'm pretty sure this is not original like at all. But I couldn't get it out of my mind, and I just really wanted to make a whole bunch of eyes on a normal face. But I also added a smile just to add a little bit more of a creepy factor. And I also really enjoyed drawing teeth as of late. I don't know what it is about teeth. I just think they're neat, and I love making them shiny, and I love making the like meat around the teeth. So I did that and firmly enjoyed that. It was a good experience. I added some lips as well, and later I made them very shiny. Oh, and I also added ears because I thought ears and mouth at the same time would kind of add more of a human-like persona to this character. So it's not just a bunch of eyes on a paste-like canvas, if that makes sense. I added a whole bunch of folds, mostly around the eyes, but I also wanted to add them kind of around the head, so it looked like the skin was very disturbed and kind of wraps weirdly around the head. That, in my opinion, adds another layer to the horror in a way. I also wanted the eyes of the monster to be looking in different directions, so they're not all looking at the viewer, but it's more like each eye has a mind of its own. So it's almost like the eyes, instead of belonging to the person that owns the head, they kind of are parasites that have a will of their own. Or maybe the creature can just see different things at once, who knows. After I put in some shadows and drew the basics of the head, it was time for the highlights, which was really fun to make and probably my favorite part of this drawing specifically, because the eyes of course have to be quite white, but at the same time I want them to have shading and to look like they are round balls that are attached to the head, right? And then I also added highlights in the folds, of course, to make them kind of pop and look a lot more 3D. And I also kind of start rendering each eye, starting with this one right here, where I add more details, fix it and clean it up with white. I decided to make them a lot more lifelike with a little highlight in the middle, just to make them a little bit more shiny. And then I also added more of the shadows with black to kind of show more where the eye is supposed to be, and I also feel like that adds another layer to it. I didn't focus too much on the rendering for any of the eyes or for any of the drawings that I make in this video really, because again, this was supposed to be like a chill little drawing session for me, but I still enjoy a little bit of a render here and there, so I decided to render the eyes semi-well. So not my best work, but just to give it a little bit more of a pop and make it a tad more interesting. Here I'm adding a little more shading to the mouth to make it a bit more dramatic, and also since I made the eyes have a little bit more of a black color, the mouth had to also have it, otherwise it will look a little bit unfinished. Then I added some final highlights on the face and on the last eye, and then I was finished with the black and white version of this. And then I kind of wanted to try a little bit of color, so I tried to just add some blue in there just to see how it would look. I didn't like that, so I added a color layer to try to make a human looking face, I guess, and some blue eyes. I also hated how that looked, so I tried a gradient map as a little last experiment. And I found this one that I quite liked, and I messed around with it a little bit, and I came up with this result in the end that is more of a yellow reddish hue, and I actually quite like that one. But in the end I didn't save that, so here's the final result. And here is the colored version compared to the uncolored version. That is pretty much it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you again next week. Goodbye.